Hey everybody, it's David Andrews here with 10 healthy habits for high energy living. And we're on day 5 of habit 1. So we're working with the idea of light as a healthy habit. So when you think about light, there's a lot of aspects to it, but primarily we've been talking about light from the sun. So yesterday we talked a little bit more about midday light and vitamin D. So I wanted to continue that theme today and really just spend a few minutes regarding vitamin D, because there's a lot of information in the media about vitamin D. It's become quite the craze in the last decade or so. And some of the stats are basically saying that most all people living in the northern hemisphere, north of, say, the 35th parallel, that would be in the USA, right around the state of Tennessee and across. If you're north of that, you're very, very, very likely to be deficient in vitamin D, especially throughout the winter. So what we really need to do for all of us living in the northern hemisphere, north of the 35th parallel, we get way less vitamin D, because in the winter months, so I don't have the exact dates, but it obviously depends on where you live, how far north you are. The sun does not allow your body with its rays to produce vitamin D from, say, about mid-October to mid-April or March, April, right in there, depending on obviously how far north you are. So that means there's a good 6 months of time when your body will not be producing vitamin D from the sun. That's a problem. So when you look at something like even cancer rates, there's a very extreme difference in the amount of people getting cancer or dying from cancer around the equator versus far to the north. So the sun is a preventative in many, many cases, many, many different ailments. And so what we want to talk through is how to fortify yourself so that your immune system is strong and so you can avoid ailments of all kinds, disease and illness, etc. And so one thing you can do is during the summer months is spend more time outdoors, and your body actually can store up vitamin D. And there's an app that I've been using for maybe a year or two now. Very, very useful. It has a free version and a premium upgrade for a fee version. But if you go to your app store and download the app called D Minder, so it's the letter D and then Minder, like reminder, only D Minder. It's just a way to track your vitamin D intake from the sun. So it's really cool because it tells you what time of day the sun is high enough to start producing vitamin D, and when the vitamin D window closes. So every day it opens and closes. Like I mentioned, somewhere usually between 10 and 4. That window will close, as you get further into the fall season, and depending on where you are, north to south. Secondly, it allows you to time yourself so you don't get overexposed to the sun. So very, very critical not to use any sunscreen at all, and to limit the amount of time you're spending in the sun so you do not burn. So it's a little different strategy than what you might hear in the mainstream media, which is to just lather up with sunscreen. Your dermatologist, don't go out in the sun, make sure you put your sunscreen on. All these things are bad advice. So it just kind of adds to the long list of things that we are told by supposed experts that are supposed to be good for us and to keep us safe, but actually are meant to harm us. How is this possible? There could be so many things in the world that we are not aware of that can harm us. So what I am sharing with you is just, this is my research, this is my understanding, this is my knowledge. Please, please, please don't take my word for it. If you really are curious and you really need to know or want to know, just look it up. All the information is available. There's a really, really good book called Embrace the Sun. And that's where I got a lot of great information, plus numerous other research articles and books, etc. But my experience is such that when I spend time in the sun, I develop what's called sun tolerance. And so all of my life, I was very pale skinned and always burned, because I'd go out to the beach, I'd go out to the lake, and, I don't really want to put on a lot of sunscreen. So I would stay out too long and burn because I did not have a systematic way of increasing my ability to absorb light from the sun. So as you're out in the midday sun, which is a recommendation that I'm making, be out in the midday sun, start with a small amount, and the longer you continuously go out in the sun, increase the amount of time. So that way your body will adjust and you will build a sun tolerance. Your skin will absorb more light. You'll notice that the melanin will start to turn your skin a little more tan, a little darker. It'll darken up. And that might take a while, though, depending on your skin type. And you may or may not actually get to a level that will allow you to stay in the sun a really long time, depending on how fair skin you are. However, if you can build up to even 30 minutes in the sun, that's really all you might need, depending on your health and your level. You might need hours in the sun if you have some conditions you're trying to get rid of. So sun therapy is a huge topic all on its own. Many ailments have been reduced or eliminated with sun therapy over the years. It was a mainstream medical practice prior to antibiotics coming on the scene. So a lot of really good information out there if you want to research more about vitamin D. And I think the last thing I want to say is, if possible, during all the months when the sun is out and all the months of summer, spring, and fall when vitamin D is available from the sun, best option is to get your body to produce vitamin D from sunlight. Now in the winter months, that's when supplementation with vitamin D3 can be an advantageous option or an alternative, but better to also eat foods rich in various fatty acids that will allow your body to produce some vitamin D. So these are all items that I think are just critical to our good health. We don't think a lot about light, so this is halfway through our series on light. We'll be diving into other topics of light not related to the sun, and also just helping to ingrain this idea. If you are practicing something every day of getting outside, and then morning for the sunrise, midday for vitamin D, and then we'll talk about evening here in a future video. So be well, be happy, be excited, have high energy, and enjoy the sun.